We are back with more NBA coverage for the NBA playoffs conference semifinals round. And in this one, I will be covering all the game one action to get things started with the Pacers and Cavs on Sunday. And as I've always stated, when it comes to a player like Tyrese Halliburton, I continue to bring up his massive potential in terms of being able to both score and facilitate. But I do cite that his passive play can get him into trouble sometimes, in that I would prefer to see him play more aggressive in certain points, especially when the team needs it. Now, obviously, coming into this series, this is quite literally strength on strength when it comes to both of their offenses, the depth that both the Pacers and Cavaliers have. But ultimately, to get something like this to go, you were going to have Tyrese Halliburton show his full prowess here. And off the rip, he didn't leave anything up to chance. He was aggressive through and through when it came to facilitating the ball. As multiple of his assists led to some of the first few scores of the ball game for the Pacers. And then he also just ripped off just consecutive field goal makes to start out the early portion of this game. Not even missing all that much. Just generating very great offense all around. Now, the Cavaliers were struggling to stop that offense, of course, but they had a few responses in their bag, as they naturally would with the roster that they currently have at this point. Now, obviously, Darius Garland wasn't playing, but still with Donovan Mitchell leading the ship, leading the charge, they were still able to generate pretty good offensive sets. And I think that was the biggest takeaway from at least the early first quarter of this game. Even though there were some lapses in execution, the play designs were very good for both squads, if that makes sense. They got the looks they wanted. It was just a matter of whether or not they could hit them. And the Pacers would especially turn that up as they would go on a 10-0 run, starting out with a TJ McConnell three-pointer to end off the first quarter, with the Benedict Mathurin getting a three-point shot as well just before the end of it. As we get into the second quarter, you would see the Pacers dip a little bit with Tyrese Halliburton getting back out there. The Cavaliers just adjusted as best as they could defensively, getting in the right rotations and forcing the Pacers, who had been virtually hot all night long, from three to regress just a little bit, allowing them to get back into the ball game and chip away at the lead. They would bring it within 4 at one point, before ultimately seeing the lead increase back up to just 6 to end off the second quarter and take them into halftime. The third quarter saw really interesting sequences go down. For one, earlier on in it, they had Jarrett Allen absolutely posterize Miles Turner, but I guess as he was trying to get it in, he got pushed up and he threw it down. He got him great, but he also took such a fucking hard fall on his back, and they would definitely question if he would be able to return for at least a second. No, he was right back on his feet, but nevertheless, that hindered his ability a little bit to be as aggressive as he would want to be defensively, because within just a few plays, the Pacers would just cycle through the offense with elite ball movement, and they caught Jarrett Allen out of position for what was a very important three-pointer at that time for the Pacers. Now, they would get themselves into a bit more trouble as Miles Turner and Andrew Nembhard would stamp their own impacts on the game, continue to do so, as Andrew Nembhard again had the assignment on Donovan Mitchell, and although when it came to Donovan Mitchell driving in the paint, he couldn't necessarily be stopped, of course. No one, and I mean absolutely no one, could really affect him in that way. But Nembhard did do a good job at times, and at least some of the other players that would defend Donovan Mitchell throughout this game, they did a great job of forcing up jump shots. And he was not efficient from there at all. Even with that being said, the Pacers would go up 80-68, but the Cavs would go on a 22-12 run, rather, to cap off the third quarter, as they would just have a massive turnaround on both sides of the ball. They were just hawking down people defensively and offensively. They just tapped into Donovan Mitchell's strength. He was able to get an emphatic dunk to bring the lead down to just one, and then Evan Mobley would get it right back after a missed jumper from Mathurin. He was surrounded by Miles Turner and Andrew Nembhard in the paint, and yet he held it down despite the double team, put up the floater, and made quite the tough shot over those two to take the lead temporarily. They would increase it up to 4, although the Pacers would have a couple of their own responses, with Tyrese Halliburton continuing to be as efficient as possible from the field. And Donovan Mitchell would temporarily take back the lead again with a layup of his own, but not to be outdone, Miles Turner had to get himself a buzzer beater at the end of the quarter, faking out Max Strus on the contest and firing up a shot, hitting it right in the nick of time. It was just wild. Both of their elite offenses, two of the best in NBA history, literally the Pacers last season and the Cavs this season, this was to be expected. And I was here for the entire thing, to be completely honest with you. And that's why I think that the series can be pretty fucking good. Like Mitchell, though, they were going to have to try to account for him in some way. He had 12 third quarter points by himself. That is just something that they were going to have to limit entering this period. As the fourth quarter would continue on, again, both teams just continued to throw haymakers at each other. They would get a lead and then have it taken right back from them. Obi Toppin, up to this point, when he made this jumper to tie up the ball game, he had made all of his shots from the field. He was getting exploited a little bit defensively. But not to be outdone, Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus would help the Cavs take yet another lead. And then madness would ensue, at least for the Cavs from there. Because, again, the defense just continued. Yes, Max Strus would get the better of Obi Toppin on this, but you would just see a good balance of basketball overall. Halliburton just continued to stamp his impact on the game down the stretch, as Andrew Nembhard also just hitting damn step-back threes and being another floor general on the court, allowing himself to just completely exploit the Cavs' defense at this time. The Cavs' offense had few responses. And even when they tried and got close to doing so, there was always help. I mean, for crying out loud, Tyrese Halliburton got multiple blocks down this stretch of time for a person that isn't necessarily considered a great defender. Like, he got beaten by Ty Jerome on a drive, got him from behind. He got Strus on the three-point line. And then that was converted into another timely layup for him. That would see an overall 15-6 run, with Halliburton anchoring what was a pretty solid unit in terms of that period of defensive possessions right there. or those sequences in those defensive possessions, rather. And with that run, they would eventually end off the ball game, winning it 121 to 112. Now, again, I do believe in a case where the Cavs can get Darius Garland back, it does add another element to the series for them. But like I have said, the Pacers are one of few teams that can give the Cavaliers trouble, especially when it comes to their defense. Because the Pacers have that kind of ball movement, that kind of pace. And they are so careful at the same time with the basketball. So you're going to have to take a whole lot of thought and effort into however you approach these different games against this team when it comes to what you draw up. Because they're always thinking 2 steps ahead of the opponent. And it really does force you to rack your brain around exactly what it is that you might need to do. Because if you don't, then you're going to continue to give up open threes. You're going to allow so many different players around the team. I can't say it's a by committee thing, but at that point, everyone becomes a threat in their own respective way. And that is the last spot you want to find yourself in as a defense. Because you already will have to deal with a person like Tyrese Halliburton, obviously engineering the whole thing. But by consistently getting yourselves off balance, anyone can do anything in any shape or form against you. And at that point, what can you truly do? The Pacers would see Andrew Nembhard log 23 points and 6 assists without any other stat and with just a single foul on 7 of 10 shooting with 5 threes. Insanity. Tyrese Halliburton had 22 points, 13 assists, 3 rebounds, a steal, 3 blocks, in just a single turnover with a single foul on 9 of 15 shooting and 2 threes. But again, he's somehow, someway, the most overrated player in the NBA. Got it. Okay. Pascal Siakam with 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists on 6 of 15 shooting, actually, for him. 2 threes, though. Aaron Nesmith also had 17 with 4 threes. He was on fire as well. I mean, dude, like for a stretch there, he himself couldn't miss. It was insane to see. And honestly, you gotta credit Aaron Nesmith in a way. Like, he's come a long way. Because he wasn't doing nearly anything compared to this when he was in Boston. I can tell you that right now. But his contributions on both sides of the ball for this Indiana team done nothing but wonders for them. Miles Turner had 13 points and 11 rebounds, while Benedict Mathurin added 11 off the bench with 5 rebounds of his own. They had 53% overall shooting from the field, including 52.8% from deep with 19 threes. And they also shot 93.3% from the line as a team. As for the Cavs, Evan Mobley had 20 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals on 9 of 13 shooting with 2 threes. Donovan Mitchell had 33 points. But when you look at the splits, they tell a pretty interesting story. 13 of 30 shooting to get there. 12 of 19 inside the three-point line. And then 1 of 11 from deep. Would have been better for Donovan Mitchell to continue to drive. And honestly, Would we have liked to see that? Yes. Would we eventually end up seeing that? That's for the next video, to foreshadow just ever so slightly. But nonetheless, the 3-point struggles for the entire team were there. It wasn't just him, but that put them at such a disadvantage. And then he also shot 6 of 9 from the free throw line. Ty Jerome off the bench had 21 points, 8 assists, and 3 rebounds on 8 of 20 shooting with just a single 3. DeAndre Hunter had 11, and Jarrett Allen had 12. 5 rebounds is a little low. And, 6 of 7 shooting is pretty great, though. He's always been a pretty efficient center, so that's not a surprise. But what is a surprise is that despite them shooting 45.9% from the field, which isn't really bad by any means, that efficiency was tanked by the volume and lack of efficiency from 3. As a team, the Cavs shot 9 of 38 from deep, just 23.7%. And then they did not do the greatest job of hitting their foul shots. Most other things went in their way. Like, they were able to force turnovers. So, they got a good read on some of the plays, and they were able to storm back and take leads. But ultimately, without them really being able to stop the offense from getting out of their true shooting rhythm, you can see why they ended up giving the lead right back and ultimately losing this game. It's not necessarily panic for them, but you would like to see that improve for sure. That is all I would say. As for the Pacers, again, a lot of this discourse would suggest that the Pacers are just not a legitimate team at all. Again, they literally just got to the conference finals last season. Yes, it did take some injuries to get there, of course, but they still had to play the teams in front of them, and man, they played them damn well. I don't know how you can see them make the progression that they have as a squad this season and still say that they stand absolutely no chance. Now, granted, the Cavs could still win out, and that wouldn't necessarily be surprising. But we can't act like the Pacers aren't a team that can give them a true fight, and a way better fight than whatever effort or lack thereof you want to label for the Heat. I'm telling you, this is going to be a competitive series through and through. Moving on to the Knicks Celtics, and things got really interesting in this one. Now, I did not end up watching the first half because I was occupied, but I'm tracking the game. I'm looking at the score. I'm seeing that the Celtics are up 61-45, and I'm like, what's new with this Knicks team against top competition in the East? They simply have not all season long gotten the job done against teams like this. So why would I expect that to change instantly? Literally, coming into this game, they had an 0-11 record against them. I'm like, nah, man, that's unacceptable work. Now, certainly things were going to have to turn around if they wanted to start off this series right by getting an upset in TD Garden. Because something has to give at some point. You can't keep getting owned by these teams. As the playoffs continue on, you're going to be facing tougher and tougher competition as it is. You got to be prepared for it in some way. Because if you cannot adjust, you're going to be screwed. And it felt like as I was watching the early portions of this second half, man, they did not get the memo because they would allow the Celtics to go up by 20. This is a 75-55 ball game around the halfway mark of the third quarter. And then fortunes would start to change for the Knicks. OG Anunoby, on what would actually end up being a career-high night for him when it came to the playoffs, did respond with back-to-back threes to at least take some of the air and some of the momentum out of that damn stadium. The Celtics would also get a couple of back-to-back three-pointers from Jason Tatum, though, to put the lead back up to 15 after a few responses from Jaylen Brown. Those were the only 6 points that Jason Tatum scored in the second half to that point. He had been held scoreless. So that was very interesting to see. And the Celtics, this would become a problem for them. They kept settling for jump shots. You have to credit the Knicks defense for being able to pack the paint in the ways that they did, and kind of forcing them in some of these cases to not have an option outside of just shooting these shots at the same time. The Celtics are such a dynamic team overall. They have the championship experience now. You would think that at some point, if you are not seeing the three-point shot fall, that you would just navigate to another type of game plan to attack this Knicks defense. They kept firing three-pointers in some of the most reckless ways imaginable. I'm not even worried about Al Horford getting a little three-point shot to end off the third quarter. It didn't fucking matter. It just was not consistent enough. You got it one time and you just want to continue to spam it up. It hurt them. And it allowed the Knicks to buy themselves some grand time. Even when they did miss a few shots, they could always rely on the fact that they were going to give themselves a few extra possessions simply by just allowing the Celtics to chuck these damn shots up. And it paid off for them. OG Anunoby would help them get the game within one. And then from here, you would see a lot of back and forth from both teams as Jalen Brunson would get just pushed for whatever reason out of the way en route to a Celtics score, but as clutch time kicked in, Jalen Brunson would, for the most part, man the ship in the best way he could, getting a few three-point shots of his own and pushing the lead up to 6. The Knicks as well also got some very good defense to go. Though, well, I guess, Mitchell Robinson obviously is going to provide you with great defense all the time. And he would honestly become important very soon as he would continue to secure all different types of rebounds and also just alter the shot trajectory at the rim. It got down to the wire where OG Anunoby would actually find himself open in the corner off of a breakdown from Derek White and would give them a 2-point lead, but they would also have a breakdown, the Knicks, and allow Drew Holiday to get a routine pass from Jaylen Brown and just put in an easy layup off glass. We get down to the final few seconds of the game where Jason Tatum again just decides for whatever reason to settle for a three-pointer. The Knicks get it right back, and they have a chance after a foul to end off the game themselves. However, as Karl Anthony Towns gets the entry pass in, Jalen Brunson does receive it. He drives in a little bit more and tries to put it up high off the glass. It got close. It got so fucking close. All it needed was the right roll. But Al Horford just his mere presence and attempt to swat it out of the way affected the trajectory of the basketball, and it just went right out. Celtics would get it back with another chance, just around 6/10 of a second. And then Jason Tatum just threw up one of the weirdest shots imaginable. Now, yeah, he probably wasn't going to make it because you're not going to have enough time to really get yourself in the right position to even fire up a shot like that with just around 6/10 of a second left. But this man threw up a fucking fadeaway. I guess they're ruling it as a 2 here. It looked like a 3 in a lot of time, but it didn't even get anywhere close to the hoop. Was well contested, but wasn't blocked. He just straight up put it through in one of the weirdest ways I've ever seen a shot travel. It makes no sense. This was going to come down to paint points. Threes obviously can have a greater impact on the game, but this was going to come down to who was going to get more physical with the other. And we would have a little while before getting an answer to that. I mean, to start out, you had Mikal Bridges, who, again, as I was alluding to earlier, though he wasn't necessarily scoring the best, his defense was exceptional in this game, especially late. I mean, on this sequence, he actually managed to get an attempted steal on Jaylen Brown and then kind of swipe it away near the corner, save it as he was falling out, and get it out to Josh Hart on a fast break opportunity. Jason Tatum got caught sleeping, and OG Anunoby got an easy dunk on him. He hung on the rim for such time, and it was so bad as well because Jason Tatum actually fouled the shit out of him, forcing an and one and putting the Knicks up by 3. The Knicks would just not allow anything to go through when it came to getting shots in the paint, and they just continued from there to settle. But the three-pointer would not fall for them at all. Mikal Bridges would also hit a very well-timed three-pointer despite his lack of good shooting overall in this game, which helped them bring up the lead to 6. And it remained that way up until they allowed a strong offensive rebound for Drew Holiday, and he would gift Jaylen Brown with a three-point shot. The Knicks had a few chances to close, and credit to the Celtics squad as a whole, they would not allow it to happen so easily. They actually baited Josh Hart as well to end off one of the possessions shooting a damn 3, and it worked out for them perfectly. He missed it. Like, you will live with him, of all people, taking up a shot of that sort. There's no question about that. But the Celtics would at least get a possession. They would get a possession after this. Note that I didn't say a true chance to do anything, because on the very first second following the inbound, Jaylen Brown gets the ball, but Mikal Bridges is right there, and he just packs him up. He stole the ball right from him like he was a little fucking kid. Ripped it away and ended off the game in overtime, with the Knicks getting a 108-105 victory and securing their very first win against the top 3 team in the East. Now, as far as OG Anunoby goes, as I mentioned, a career high night for him in points with 29. Also had 4 rebounds and 3 assists on 10 of 20 shooting with 6 threes. Jalen Brunson had 29 points as well on 9 of 23 shooting with 5. Josh Hart and Karl-Anthony Towns both have 14, with Towns having 13 rebounds and Josh Hart having 11, 3 assists, and 2 steals. As for Deuce McBride, he had 11 off the bench, giving them a solid scoring option from that aspect of the team. As for the Celtics, Jaylen Brown had 23 points and 7 rebounds with 5 assists. Jason Tatum also had 23 points, 16 rebounds, and 6 assists with 2 steals. Derek White had 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Drew Holiday had 16 on 7 of 14 shooting. And then Peyton Pritchard had 13 and 5 off the bench. Well, 13 and 3 off the bench. On 3 of 6 shooting with 2 threes. Speaking of the threes, man, I mentioned that the Cavs struggled. Yeah, the Celtics had it way worse in this one. Now, these exact measures being replicated might be a stretch, but at the same time, they missed 45 threes on this night, made just 15, shooting just 25% from the field from 3-point line, and this number would become the most in a playoff game all time. Like, how ironic is it that you had a chance to shoot your 61st and miss your 46th three-pointer, and then even at that point, just because you know it's not going to work, you have Mikal Bridges swarm in there and save everybody's time, honestly. Because at that point, you can almost deduce that they would probably not make that anyways. So, that's what it is. At the same time, for the Celtics overall, it's not even just the fact that the entire team. Look at how their players were so content with it. I mean, Al Horford shooting 5 threes and making just 1. Or Drew Holiday shooting 7 threes and making just 2. Then you had Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown themselves combined for 10 of 40. 10 of 41. 10 of 41 shooting, bro. From deep by themselves. That's insane. There is no reason why that should happen. Seriously. It's like, at that point, what are we doing? You gotta be kidding me, man. Now, Porzingis would also step out of the game, I guess, after the first 13 minutes. He didn't seem to register a lot. I'm not exactly sure why he ended up leaving this game. But do with that what you will. Overall, after having a 20-point lead, think about that. The Celtics had been, undefeated when they've held a 20-point lead or so in a ball game? Well, not undefeated. But I guess they've had so much proficiency with blowing teams out by as much as 20 points that rarely do they see these teams come back and win the game. And just like that, you give it up here as your offense also just withers away completely. Your defense wasn't all bad, but the offense in the fourth quarter and overtime, absolutely atrocious. They went on a 9 of 39 shooting slump over the course of the final minutes of that game. At that point, you should be trying to elevate your style of play, not just succumb to the pressure completely. That's insane. So, a very good Game 1 win for the Knicks. And they at least do steal one in TD Garden. We'll just have to see how they fare in the next game there. Moving on to the Nuggets and Thunder on Monday. And to start things out, Alex Caruso had an absolutely tremendous game overall. Like, this was Andrei Kirilenko-esque. Obviously, he's a much smaller player in weight and height, but I digress. Over the course of the entire game, he was legitimately everywhere. Whether he was playing the passing lanes accordingly, getting right on the ball for steals, getting out in transition for fast break opportunities, getting open in the corners and other open spots of the court for easy three-point shots, facilitating, and just setting the tone on defense overall. Even if every other position wasn't necessarily holding it down, you could rely on him being able to get the job done. This shit was crazy. It was wild to watch. And now that stems from him simply getting an opportunity for the fast break in the very early portion of the first quarter. It just continued to build upon itself. Also, the Thunder made it very clear as well, as things started, that they were just going to try to send a rotating cast of characters on Jokic. They would not live with him just taking one matchup for the course of the entire game. They were going to consistently switch different people on him. They tried Chet Holmgren on him a lot. They tried Isaiah Hartenstein a lot on him. They tried Lucic Dort rather on him. He was largely successful against Dort and Holmgren. Outside of a few plays, for instance, in the first quarter, he had to get double team help from SGA to lock Jokic down. But the reality is that his frame, even though Holmgren is taller, Jokic would literally bruise the hell out of Chet Holmgren. I don't think there's any doubt about that statement whatsoever. Jokic is just such a fucking physical enigma, honestly. And it's hard for a person as frail as Chet Holmgren can be to last with him. And again, a graphic show later in the game would reflect that. Is Jokic was like 6 of 9 from the field on just him when he was the primary defender. And a lot of it just saw him manning these people up down low, backing them down in the post, and just going to work. But again, all that would come with help. Even despite that, the Thunder were able to go on a run as their overall defense would tighten up. You would live with Jokic getting his, but not a lot of other players for the Nuggets really got too involved. Jamal Murray was struggling, Russell Westbrook was struggling, and Michael Porter Jr. is still just like a... One highlight, though, in the second quarter would see Aaron Gordon just eviscerate Chet Holmgren completely. He posterized the hell out of him. Again, on that replay too, it might have looked like he threw it in, but on the live action, it looked so terrible. Like he fell down to the ground and Aaron Gordon just stood at that area of the court just watching and basking in awe of the magnitude of what he just pulled off in that moment. It's crazy. Of course, that run coincided with the Thunder being able to take great advantage of the non-Jokic minutes, which were very few and far between early on because Adelman recognized that they couldn't really get away with that against this team. So they didn't play a whole bunch of their bench players over the course of this game. And the Nuggets just struggled defensively to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander earlier on. I mean, that's to be expected. Like, they tried as well to kind of put a different band of people on him. I would have preferred Christian Braun to be on him, but at the same time, your only real hope is to slow him down. That's not a player that can necessarily be stopped. So you have to just try to adjust as best as you can and as frequently as you can. At the same time, Lucian Dort could not be stopped. Like, on so many different rotations, Nuggets defenders would just leave him open. And he torched the hell out of them as well. Like, yes, you might have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams as the marquee guys, but bro, Dort and Caruso stepped up in this one. And at halftime, both of those guys would contribute to them having a 10-point lead at the end of the first half. And it would continue to grow as while Nikola Jokic would get a few things going, they were able to force him into some errant passes at times. And the whole of the Nuggets offense wasn't consistent enough up to where, although Denver would try to make things closer, it ultimately wasn't enough as the Thunder would get up eventually to a lead of like 15, I believe. Now, prior to that, Westbrook would aid what was a 19-8 run at this point to end off the third quarter. But still, the Nuggets were just at a deficit because they could not account for Caruso in pretty much every capacity imaginable. And their focus on other arbitrary players eventually forced them to have to give up open looks to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or at least looks in isolation that he would definitely exploit if given the chance. And when he was given it, at this point, the Nuggets were able to make him pay. Shai was able to make him pay, rather. They would continue to increase their lead here, even going into what could have been potentially a clutch time game. Things would get really interesting over the course of this time as well, because they had to review Nikola Jokic flagrant foul and then eventually a potential foul as he was trying to bring the ball up the court. He was deep in foul trouble. That flagrant foul on Dort saw him get to 5, putting the Thunder in a spot where they could continue to take advantage. But the Thunder were also just as susceptible to fouling to where the Nuggets were now in the bonus, and they just continued to do so. So the Nuggets were able to spur... this is the 24-9 run, rather. They were able to spur this primarily with the help of just getting some good free throws made over the course of multiple possessions in a row. Disregard just putting up any sort of true shot because the Thunder, for whatever reason, just wouldn't let them do so and dig themselves even deeper into a potential hole. In fact, all of that really allowed the Nuggets to get right back into it because you would have Nikola Jokic just take matters into his own hands, ripping off 5 straight points and getting the game within 1. Then, tensions would even hit more of a high as you would have Jalen Williams miss the layup prior to Russell Westbrook being left open in the corner and just bricking a shot. Although, again, you don't necessarily want to be giving him that look in the corner at the same time, though. You don't really have much of a choice. Jokic was getting double teamed at that time. Would have been a very bad shot to just throw up, and no one else seemed to really be in as optimal of a position. You've just got to, at that point, try to trust your teammates. Now, Aaron Gordon would get the rebound eventually, but he would get packed by Jalen Williams with Isaiah Hartenstein also contesting. A very sound defensive possession, if I do say so myself, from the Thunder. Then they would get the ball back, and Shea would be fouled, putting up an easy automatic 2 and going up by 3, with Nikola Jokic also being a part of the foul game and having to respond. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander decided to score rather early afterwards, putting them back up by 3. And this specific situation right here, this specific development interested me more than all else. Of course, what ends up happening is pretty fucking wild, but this was absurd when I first saw what was going down. Because at that point, the Nuggets had their defensive lineup in to potentially stop the Thunder. And instead of making your dunk and just allowing the Nuggets to do whatever they wanted, because keep in mind, they didn't have a timeout at this point of time. They wasted them all. Nikola Jokic is on the sideline. Now, understand that they have other threats on the court who can create a good offensive shot to potentially tie up the game. But at the same time, you do not capitalize off of the Nuggets not having their best player on the court in that moment. It would be ideal to just force them to just create something totally improvised and highly inefficient to just run out the clock and get the victory and prepare for game 2. No, they foul. Letting Aaron Gordon hit a free throw and ultimately being a dead ball situation that allowed Nikola Jokic to get placed back into the ball game. Aaron Gordon would make both, and Chet Holmgren would be fouled on the next inbound. The first one would miss horribly. The second one would miss even worse, as Christian Braun would get it and push it up the court to Russell Westbrook. Now, granted, this is a man who would certainly drive it in situations like these. But rather than try to pull off an elite Brandon Knight impression, he decided to simply dish it out to Aaron Gordon, who had been getting the better of Chet Holmgren all night long. He would get him again, completely, as he would hit a very clutch three-pointer to give the Nuggets the lead when it seemed unlikely just even a minute earlier. They would get it done. Jalen Williams would try to throw a prayer to no avail, and the Nuggets would get a 121-119 victory. At face value, I felt for Chet Holmgren, man. I know that he is probably still feeling the effects of that to this particular moment, because your team overall, despite having a few struggles, does all that so well. You are in prime position to win, and everything just goes haywire to where the Nuggets are able to just creep their way back in and take a 1-0 lead in the series, ultimately winning the game as well. Holmgren in this one would have 12 points and 6 rebounds. Hartenstein had 12 and 9 rebounds. Jalen Williams had 16 and 7 rebounds, but on 5 of 20 shooting, actually. Lucian Storch had 4 threes for 14 points. Alex Caruso had 20 points on 7 of 12 shooting with 5 threes. He also added 6 assists and 5 steals with 2 blocks. Like I said, just a force everywhere. And if you can get that kind of well-rounded game from him to still lose, that's not necessarily the greatest of things. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 33 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists with 2 steals as well on 12 of 26 shooting with 2 threes. As for the Nuggets, Aaron Gordon has been off to a tear to start off this playoff run, averaging some of the best numbers he's had in the postseason over the course of his entire career, and panning out to be the X factor that many people consider him to be for this team. Especially in the absence of guys like Michael Porter Jr., even when they're both on the court at the same time. It helps tremendously to be getting this overall contribution from him on both sides of the ball. As a rebounder, generally, and as a potential tertiary scoring option, sometimes second option. It can fluctuate on a night-to-night basis, and it seems like he's had the proper style in approaching every single one of those potential roles. He had 22 points and 14 rebounds in this one, all on 7 of 15 shooting with 33s. Jamal Murray had 21 points on 6 of 16 shooting with 6 rebounds and assists and a steal. Russell Westbrook had 18 points off the bench with 2 assists and 2 rebounds on 7 of 13 shooting, and Christian Braun had 11 points and 13 rebounds. Although it was a rougher night for Nikola Jokic. Again, 7 turnovers. They did as good of a job as one can in terms of just providing that interior pressure and swarming directly at him and around him to prevent him from finding the read that he might be looking for in a given moment. Even then, 42 points and 22 rebounds with 6 assists and 2 blocks. First 40-20 game in the playoffs for him. Shit is fucking wild. This is exactly what I anticipated. Not necessarily the Nuggets winning in this fashion, but a good overall game between teams being led by 2 of the best players, depending on who you ask, in the world right now. And hey, on this game right here on Monday, we got exactly what we asked for with it. Neither team necessarily shot the greatest from 3, but again, free throws ultimately allowed the Nuggets to get back in this one because they served as just placeholder possessions and also chances for this team to kind of re-energize themselves. I mean, for Jokic to be playing 42 minutes and for Jamal Murray to be playing 44 minutes, they had to be gassed for a while having to be out there. So just giving them that time for recuperation was also just another element to just how bad of a decision this was to employ that kind of scheme. As for Michael Porter Jr., again, I just don't know what it is with him, man. 2 points on 1 of 8 shooting. Like, we're talking about a person who, all things considered, if it wasn't for Isaiah Joe missing all of his 3-pointers, like, we would be considering him to be the worst player on the court in this game tonight. Or in the game on Monday. It's crazy. And like, even if you want to give Isaiah Joe that kind of disrespect at the same time, Isaiah Joe is nowhere on the same caliber of player as Michael Porter Jr. can be if he tries to handle all of these deficiencies and flaws in the postseason. Work on your game. Get yourself more acclimated to doing things outside of just shooting the ball. And maybe you would see general improvement. It genuinely does not seem like he does that enough. And it just eats away at him sometimes. And also, again, I think someone mentioned that he was still injured. His shoulder was still banged up a little bit. And I suppose that makes sense. But at the same time, if you are playing out there, I would hope he recognizes that they're going to need a lot more from him than what he is providing right now. It's just that simple. So they've got to get that together because, bro, like, come on now. Seriously. Still, every one of these games, at least one, literally just a game per week, maybe a couple. And especially when it comes to Nuggets games this season, just provides some kind of crazy fucking sequence that ends in the craziest way imaginable. And it just makes for good basketball overall. So even with the Thunder messing that up, like, bro, that was still a great overall game. Moving on to the Warriors and the Timberwolves. Both teams started this one out in the sloppiest manner imaginable. Everybody wants to talk about rest versus rust. Both teams did not necessarily get off to the hottest of starts, man. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, they got a couple shots to go to start out the Warriors, but at the same time, man, the Wolves did end up responding with a 14-5 run. Still, that was drawn out over minutes on end. Like, I kid you not, that entire offense during the first quarter could not shoot a jump shot to save their lives. They didn't make a single three-pointer. Anthony Edwards was definitely checking up some three-pointers as well, but even when it came to just general looks on the inside, a lot of these different players had just routine misses. And, you know, I guess if you're a person who is an offensive-minded basketball watcher, I mean, this just was not going to be the game for you, especially with a start like that for both squads. Even with all that being said, naturally the game was still close. It was looking like shit was going to get out of hand to look at the second quarter again. Just like, bro, there's no even ideal way to approach talking about this, especially when you look at the Timberwolves perspective. Like, this isn't even something I could go like go with by a play-by-play approach, bro. It was just bad all around for them. The Warriors were able to go on a 28-11 run at the same time. They could not generate offense at all. And it was not just one thing or another. It was a culmination of just about everything that could go wrong for an offense in a 12 minute stretch. Everything. Julius Randle himself had some errant fucking turnovers. There was a sequence where he literally just tries to draw a foul and turns the ball over. And then a few possessions later or so, they have a chance to get out in transition and kind of break this long-standing run with Jimmy Butler III running right behind him. And he dishes it out to his right. And Jimmy Butler III gets an easy steal, when all you have to do is just get down in the paint. Not to mention, again, still so many players overall just missing routine shots. Anthony Edwards still had not scored to this point. They were still not making three-pointers. And their methods of scoring came from a few free throws and just like 3 or so field goals in this second quarter. That's how bad this was. I can check this again, but it's so bad. I mean, there you have one. You got a couple of free throws. You got one there. You got one there. 4 field goals in just one 12-minute session. Disaster class in every sense of the imagination. Now, the Warriors would continue to heat it up with help from Draymond Green. Like, he, at a point, had 4 three-pointers, while the Timberwolves as a whole didn't get any to go themselves. And yet, what did they do during this time? They continued to let him shoot, and he was making them pay every fucking time. So at some point, if you're not going to make it yourself, and you see that a person in Draymond Green who doesn't typically do this is getting this to go, even if you don't necessarily trust his three-point shot, you're not going to get out there and contest him. You're going to continue letting him rain threes down on your home court. That doesn't make a lick of sense to me. But I guess when you see how the first half ended with the amount of graphics that they had here, this was not necessarily an optimal half for both teams, even though the Warriors did have themselves a 13-point lead. Because this set historical precedents for both squads, some in positive ways, some in negative ways. And also, the Warriors would undergo something that is not necessarily the greatest sign for the long term in this potential playoff run. But to look at the numbers here, Minnesota would score their fewest. To look at the numbers here, the Timberwolves would score their fewest points in a half this season, the first half this season overall, when it came to either the postseason or the regular season. 31 points in the first half is also the fewest amount that the Warriors franchise has allowed in any game since the shot clock era began. The broadcasters in the third quarter also mentioned that you would have to go back to January 2018 for the last instance of any player having just 1 point and not making a single three at all, while missing every single shot from the field. Not a great spot for Anthony Edwards to be in. The Warriors would also see that Stephen Curry would need to be taken out of the game, and eventually he would be diagnosed with a left hamstring strain. They just came out with news as I was making this video here that he is slated to miss at least a week. So that was certainly going to be a question as to if they could maintain the lead without him. And I guess going into future games, are they going to be able to continue to hold it down? Because as far as things went in this game in the second half, it was tough. And you have to credit the Timberwolves, especially in the fourth quarter. They were able to get a few timely three-point shots. But with responses from Buddy Hield and then Gary Payton II, the little runs they had there were kind of offset. Also, Buddy Hield overall had 16 points in the third quarter. The Warriors were able to mount some runs of their own at the same time. And even when it was looking bleak, their defense did get timely stops they needed to offset that. Despite Anthony Edwards having 11 fourth quarter points and getting like 22 points in the second half. Good fight. Certainly gotta give them credit for that because they were on pace to have one of the worst performances in the shot clock era for any team in NBA history. But they at least avoided that. Still, they could not overcome that horrible second quarter from hell. And the Warriors will win 99-88. Granted, without Stephen Curry. We'll obviously have to see if something like that would be repeated. You genuinely can't give a yes or no because, again, this is a very different atmosphere. There is no way to truly guarantee anything here. But it's a good sign, all things considered. I mean, Curry, though he did bow out early, would have 13 points in 13 minutes on pretty efficient shooting. Elsewhere, you would have Jimmy Butler III put up a triple-double with 20 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals on 7 of 20 shooting. Buddy Hield had 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists on 7 of 19 shooting with 5 threes of his own. Draymond Green had 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists with 2 steals on 6 of 13 shooting with 4 threes. Gary Payton II had 8 points, and Jonathan Kuminga even added in 7 as well. As for the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards did finish the game with 23 points and 14 rebounds with 3 steals, while shooting just 9 of 22 from the field and getting just a single 3 to go. Naz Reid had 19 points off the bench, was one of their most efficient shooters, if not their most efficient shooter, by far, making 3 threes of his own as well. Julius Randle had 18 points and 6 assists on just 4 of 11 shooting, but he made all 10 of his free throws. That's got to be the game plan for him, is just getting physical with these players at the end of the day, because they will more than live with him shooting jump shots. I would hope he recognizes that. McDaniels would have 12 and 4 on 6 of 12 shooting. Rudy Gobert would have 9 points and 11 rebounds. And Dante DiVincenzo would have 7 points, but on 3 of 11 shooting. And just 1 of 7 shooting from deep himself. Keep in mind as well that Nickeil Alexander-Walker nor Michael Conley Jr. scored in this game. Neither of them. Timberwolves shot an atrocious 5 of 29 from deep. Even when you look at the field goal efficiency and see that it's virtually even between both squads, the fact that the Warriors had a 13 three-pointer advantage, a difference of 39 points on just the three-point line. In a perfect scenario, this could have been way worse for the Timberwolves. Now, is this a true representation of what the Timberwolves can be? I don't necessarily think so. I think a lot of it can be attributed to rust. I'm going to be fair. The Warriors are coming off of a game where even if the series as well leading up to that particular game might have taken a lot of energy out of them. At the same time, they are very much in the flow of playing true basketball. The Timberwolves have been resting for that much time. So naturally, things are going to look a little bit sloppier when they step back on the court. And they seem to find a little bit of their stride later on. At the same time, they're going to have to hit the ground running early in the next game. They cannot afford another slow start, even remotely close to whatever the hell that stretch was as far as yesterday night's game goes. Because they will not be able to overcome it. Simply put. Like, yes, Stephen Curry, of course, they could certainly exploit that as well. The idea that he's not out there. But the Warriors are such a well-rounded team with a much better defense compared to their last opponent in this playoff run, that if they continue to find themselves in slumps like these, if this is not a one-off, this is not going to be a fun series for the Timberwolves. But that will do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.